Welcome to Mom's Minute. My name is Mary Winnie, and my husband Dan and I have been a part of Cornerstone since its inception 31 years ago. And throughout those years, we've taught Sunday school with the kids, and I served as the children's director for many years. And for the last 3 years, I serve as the director of the women's ministry here at Cornerstone. We raised our 2 children here in this church. They grew up here, and today they're grown adults with families of their own. My son Nathan and his wife Amy have 3 little boys, and my daughter Becca and her husband Buster have a little girl. So as a mother who's raised her own children, and now with my children raising their children, I understand the importance of teaching and training children in the instruction and the discipline of the Lord. I truly believe that hard work of parenting and consistent training and teaching your children, working to get to their hearts so that they love the Lord, is vital. It is worth all the sacrifice, the mental exhaustion, and the extra patience that's needed to stop and correct your child and teach them again and again. In order to reach the heart and help your child understand the love God has for them and their need for Christ, you need to start when they are young by teaching them to obey. And today, we are starting a series on child training. And this video today, we're going to focus on obedience. And we need to teach our children to obey you, the parent, and also God. Obedience is key. It's foundational for every child to learn and essential for every parent to teach. Ephesians 6:1 says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." And I want to teach you a quick and simple little rhyme that you can teach your kids as you teach them how they need to learn to obey. And it goes like this: obey right away, all the way, and in a happy way. The first part of this simple rhyme starts with obey right away. So what does that mean for a child? Well, it means that your child needs to be trained to come right away when you call his name or respond the first time when you tell them to do something. They don't ignore you. They don't wait until you threaten and repeat yourself over and over again, or your voice gets louder and you become frustrated, and then that's when they know that you really mean it. Your child needs to learn that he needs to respond the first time you call his name. Why would you want your child to ignore you when you're calling them or telling them to do something? Well, when you don't teach them to obey the first time, that's actually what you're training them to do. You're teaching them that they don't have to listen the first time because you really don't mean it. Delayed obedience is disobedience. Now, parents get upset and they get angry at their kids when they don't obey, but yet it's really the parents who are at fault. Now, I understand that there are some children who are more compliant and they respond right away to correction. And then there are some children who, they're a little more trying. They exert their own will and they want control. But does that mean that because a child is more defiant that he gets his way? No. Instead, this means that the parent needs to be more intentional and consistent. Consistency is key. If your standard for your child's obedience changes from day to day or week to week, they are not going to know when you mean what you say and what the actual standard is. Our standard for obedience should always be God's standard. We as adults should not obey God and his commands whenever we feel like it or when it's convenient for us. The goal is to always obey God and to do what pleases him. And the same is true for our children. Teach them that when they obey you and please you, that they're obeying and pleasing God. Colossians 3:20 says, "Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord." The second part of this simple rhyme teaches children that they need to obey all the way. Now, this means that when you tell your child to do something or you give them a task, they are to complete it. For example, if you tell your child that he needs to go to his room and clean up his toys that are on the floor, and he goes to his room and he starts to clean up the toys, but then he gets distracted and starts playing, he has not obeyed all the way. Now, there could be a couple reasons for this. Number one, it's not fun for him, and he gets easily distracted, and maybe you get distracted and you don't follow through. The second reason could be that your child is maybe young and They may not be able to complete the task without you being there to help them and show them how they need to do it. And you know, I want you to understand there's a difference between foolishness and disobedience and childishness. Disobedience and foolishness is outright defiance. It's, you know, against a command or a task or a direction that you have given. And childishness is a result of a child's age due to his immaturity. Remember, there should always be consequences for disobedience. Consistency in discipline is so important. And we're going to be covering that more so in future videos. Hebrews 12:11 says, "For the moment all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." Now, behavior modification, that is changing your child's behavior, is not the goal in parenting. Getting to the heart is what we want to work at. How do you get to your child's heart? You know, it's easy to tell your child what he or she has done wrong, but sometimes it's better to ask questions and to help them learn how to think for themselves. By asking questions that probe at the heart, they help to draw out what's going on inside of them and helps to reach the heart. Proverbs 20 verse 5 says, "The purpose in a man's heart," or we could say a child's heart, "is like deep water, and a man or a parent of understanding will draw it out." It takes time to slow down and to talk with your kids and ask good questions. And Ginger Pullman, in her book, Wise Words for Moms, she gives some behavior issues that you deal with your children. And in her book, she also gives some suggestions for heart-probing questions that you can use when you're working with your children. So let's go back to the example of cleaning up the toys. When you go into the bedroom and the toys are still all over the floor and your child is actually playing instead of cleaning up, you can ask him, "Johnny, did you obey mommy when I told you to pick up your toys?" Now, there will be some times when a child, you know, might not respond to you. Sometimes when they're caught doing something wrong, they don't know what to say, or they may just be stubborn. So in this case, you answer for him and you say, "No, Johnny, you did not obey mommy." "How did you not obey?" "Well, you did not pick up your toys." "How does God want you to obey?" He wants you to obey the right way, right? He wants you to obey right away, all the way, and in a happy way. Now, correcting wrong behavior is not enough. We don't stop there, because we also want to teach our children right behavior, the better, God-honoring choice. Encourage them in doing what is right and be sure to praise them when they do. When dealing with your younger child, he may not be able to verbalize to you exactly what he did wrong. This is when you teach them what they should do and how they should do it, how they should obey. And as the child gets older, he'll be able to verbally communicate to you on his own what he has done wrong and what that better God-honoring choice should have been. Now, sometimes as a mom, we can tend to overtalk. You know, we think that if we don't say enough or in the right way that our kids aren't going to get it. But don't overtalk for your older child. Instead, communicate with questions that help him see his own heart. Allow your child time to think through things. If you ask him a question, give him time to think. Allow him to talk. Allow him to be heard. Listen to what he has to say, as long as he's doing it with a respectful communication. And you know, that leads to the third part of this simple rhyme, which is obey in a happy way. This means with a respectful and right attitude. When a child obeys, he should not be kicking and fighting with a bad attitude, but instead he should be doing it with a respectful attitude, even if he's not happy about it. Now, let me clarify that there are times when you don't ask children questions, and that is when you're giving a specific direction or a task to your child. I've heard parents say, "Johnny, can you help me clean up the toys?" Or, "Susie, would you like to put your coat on because we're going to go outside?" Or, "Would you like to take a nap?" Well, when you ask this way, your child hears you giving them a choice. Now, I understand that you really don't mean to give them a choice, but your child may respond with, "No, I don't want to." And these situations can set you up for a power struggle. So choose your words wisely. If their attitudes are right and happy, they can have a choice in areas of preference that don't require obedience. For example, they can choose what color cup they would rather have, the red one or the blue one, or what they want for lunch, if they would like macaroni and cheese or grilled cheese. But don't give choices for issues that require obedience. When you give your child a specific direction or task, it's also helpful sometimes to teach them to respond with, okay, mom, or yes, mom. This way, you know that they heard you, and you can tell by their verbal response if they are doing it in a happy way. Proverbs 2:14 says to do all things without grumbling and complaining, that you may be blameless and innocent children of God. The way that your child responds to your instructions and also how he responds to your discipline can give you a window into his heart. Raising children takes time. It takes years of teaching them when they're young and training them as they get older. All the while, you're talking with them, you're listening to them, and you're gaining insight into what's going on in their hearts and what their desires are. This is how relationships grow and how your relationship with your child will grow. What you do today as you parent is going to have a lasting effect years from now. It may seem insignificant in these day-to-day issues that you're dealing with, but how you parent at the age of 5 is going to affect how you parent at the age of 10, and how you're going to parent at the age of 15, and how your child will handle being an adult at age 25. It's easy to get weighed down in the day-to-day parenting, but remember that parenting is a privilege and an opportunity to build into your children. So let me end by asking you a couple heart-probing questions. Do you view parenting as a privilege and an opportunity, or a duty? Do you think about the long-term vision that you have for the spiritual well-being of your children? How will that vision affect how you parent your child today and how you're teaching them to obey? Remember, God has designed your child, your family exactly how He wanted it to be. And therefore, you are the perfect parent for each one of your children. God will equip you to do that hard work in parenting. Also remember that God's grace is able to overcome any shortcoming that you have in your parenting. Heart change happens one step at a time. Thanks for watching.